Hey everybody, Miss Dietrich here. We're looking at question number 1. There's a lot to look at and that can be a little intimidating, so let's just break this thing down. Bethany has 1 3/8 yards of orange fabric. She uses 2/3 of the fabric to make a tote bag. How many yards of fabric does Bethany use for the tote bag? Which of the following could not be used to represent the problem? Now if we just ignore all the stuff from where it says which of all the way down and just focus on how would we solve what's in this blue box, we might conclude that of means multiply. We would actually multiply these two values together to get the answer. Now when we're multiplying these two values, step 1 is to turn any mixed or whole numbers into improper fractions. So this is going to be something eighths, and since this already is a fraction, we'll just rewrite it as 2/3. And now we have to think of what's the something. To get the something, we multiply 8 times 1 and then add in the 3. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 3 would be 11. 11/3 times 2/3. And then if we actually find out what this equals, we have a couple ways we can do that, but let's say we're going to take advantage of the idea that we can reduce ahead of time. Divide by 2 here and get 1. Divide by 2 here and get 4. There's no common factor going this way, so if we go across, 11 times 1 would be 11, and 4 times 3 would be 12. So in simplest form, we're looking at 11/12. Now, if we had not simplified, and this might actually be useful to look at the unsimplified version so that we can understand the picture. If we look at the unsimplified version, we would do 11 times 2 and get 22, and then we would do 8 times 3 and get 24, and that'll help us to understand this picture because one of these boxes, it's broken up as 24ths. And since we're looking at 24ths here, it might be useful to look at this representation of the product. All right, so if we look at choice A, we need, by the way, this red number or this green number, either interpretation is a value that's less than 1. If we look at choice A, it has a complete shaded square and then a partially shaded square. So if we were to ask ourselves how many 24ths do we have here in choice A, it's going to be more than 1. In fact, if this represents 24 24ths, this would be 25 24ths, 26 24ths, 27, 28, 29. So this really represents 30 24ths, this model. And that does not match what we have here. So, and that's what they're looking for. We want the one that's not. So this is actually a contender. We might want to consider that. But let's come back and see why we either will reject or accept some of the other choices. Now if we look at choice B, it's asking us, do we understand about commutative property? Do we know that we can change the order of factors and we end up getting the same product? And if you understand that, then you'll know that this, if we went ahead and simplified this, we would get the same thing as we're getting here. So we won't pick that because they want the not. So let's cross that one out. If we look at choice C, is this really representing either 22 24ths or 11 12ths? And by the way, this is just something I put here to help us understand. So if we look at how many 24ths we have here, here's 8 24ths, 16 24ths, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 24ths. So if I just take these two little pieces here and just move them over here so that you can see that this, so basically this is crossed out now and I've just moved them over here. Is this equal to 22 24ths? And it is, right? So we want the one that's not. We're not going to pick that because that does show 22 24ths. All right, now let's look at choice D, which is really asking you to understand about distributive property. If we were to go ahead and simplify this, this would be 2/3. And if we were going to go ahead and find the product of this, that would cancel out. We'd get 1. And this would cancel out. We'd get a 1 here and we'd get a 4 here. We'd be adding 2/3 and 1/4. Now, if 2/3 plus 1/4, when we come up with a common denominator, if that equals what we have here, then we don't want to pick that. So the only thing left you have to do is get the missing numerator, add this up, and if you happen to get 11 12ths, then you're not going to pick that because we want the one that's not. So that's your only thing left you have to do is find, what's the numerator here. So I'll help you get started. That's going to be times 3 times 3, and then we're just about out of time. This would be times 4 times 4. Finish up and